Okay, we're ready. Good evening, radio fans. Big Al here on this Thursday, August 14th, 2025, and welcome to another look at radio ratings from June 2025 from select markets from across the country. And tonight we'll be taking a look at Portland, Oregon, St. Louis, Missouri, and San Antonio, Texas in this rundown. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. And let's start off in Portland, Oregon, the number 23 market in the United States. And it's pure domination for the most part for iHeartRadio. They own the top 3 spots in the Portland market, and they have 4 stations in the top 10. Starting off with its cash cow, their adult contemporary station, K103, KKCW, which actually slipped in June from 9.3 to 8.9. They have a cumulative audience of 599,900. In second place is their sister classic hits station, 106.7, The Eagle, KLTH, also down from 9.1 to 8.6, and a cumulative audience of 448,700. And in third place is another iHeartRadio station, and that's Classic Rocker 105.9 The Brew, KFBW. They're up from 6.5 to 6.8 as they maintain the number 3 spot in the City of Roses. What's up, Mason? How you doing? Their cumulative audience is 324,900. The number 4 spot is Oregon Public Broadcasting's OPB 91.5 KOPB FM. They're up from 6.3 to 6.7 to take the number 4 spot, and they have a cumulative audience of 202,100. In the number 5 spot is Alpha Media and soon-to-be Connoisseur Media's adult album alternative station, 101.9 KINK-FM, jumping more than half a point from 5.7 to 6.3, with a cumulative audience of 361,000. Oh, I'm doing real well, Mason. We're getting some thunderstorms here in the Phoenix area. So hearing a bunch of thunder outside. So if you hear that, that's basically it. What's up, Chad? How you doing, man? In 6th place is Odyssey Classic Rocker and 105.9 The Brew's competitor, 92.3 KGON, up half a point from 5.1 to 5.6, and a cumulative audience of 383,900. Coming in 7th place is Alpha Media's news talk station, FM News 101 KXL FM, holding steady at a 4.9, and a cumulative audience of 192,600. In 8th place, you've got Odyssey Country Station, 99.5 The Wolf KWJJ, up from 3.9 to 4.3, and a cumulative audience of 235,400. In 9th place is iHeartRadio's top 40 station, Z100. Not the one in New York, but the one in Portland. That would be KKRZ. They will inch up from 3.6 to 3.7. Cumulative audience of 310,100. Rounding out the top 10 is the Wolf's competing country station, Alpha Media's 98.7 The Bull KUPL, moving up from 3.0 to 3.6, and a cumulative audience of 247,000. So it looks like both classic rock stations in Portland and both country stations in Portland are doing pretty well. Outside the top 10, you have Odyssey's adult hit station, 97.1 Charlie FM, which is KYCH FM. They slipped down from a 3.4 to a 3.3. In fact, they've been in decline pretty much all year. After posting a 4.5 back in January, they slipped to 4.1 in February, 3.8 in March, 3.7 in April, 3.4 in May, and now 3.3 in June. The July ratings will be coming soon, so we'll see if that decline continues. Their cumulative audience is 387,500. Then in 12th place, it's iHeartRadio's news talk station, News Radio 1190 KEX, up from 2.8 to 3.2, and a cumulative audience of 104,500. 13th place is Alpha Media's Live 95.5 KBFF. That's a top 40 station. They're down from 3.4 to 3.0 with a cumulative audience of 253,400, and they are tied with All Classical Radio KQAC-FM from All Classical Public Media. They actually dropped a point down from 4.0 to 3.0, tying themselves with Live 95.5. KQAC has a cumulative audience of 152,600. After that, it's iHeartRadio's hip-hop station, Jammin' 107.5 KXJM FM, holding steady at a 2.5. Cumulative audience of 256,400. See, there's that thunder. Next, you have a pair of Odyssey stations right next to each other. And June would be the last book for its Hot AC station, Bella 105 KRSK, which slipped from a 2.6 to a 2.4, putting them 16th in the market with a cumulative audience of 287,600. On June 22nd, Bella 105 and its Hot AC format was discontinued, and in its place came a sports simulcast of KFXX 1080 The Fan, which we'll be talking about here in just a moment. There's Odyssey's sister alternative rocker 94-7 FM KNRK is up from 2.0 to 2.2 with a cumulative audience of 251,000, and they are tied with Salem Media Group's 93.1 El Rey KRYP, which plays regional Mexican music. They're actually down from 2.3 to 2.2, so they are tied for 17th with 94.7 FM. Their cumulative audience is 76,400. Hi, Anna, how are you? Or rather, yeah, 76,400. I read that right. Next up is aforementioned Odyssey sports station, 1080 The Fan KFXX AM, which is up from 1.9 to 2.1. Cumulative audience of 76,900. And as I mentioned, there is an FM simulcast in Portland on 105.1, which also ended the hot adult contemporary format on 105.1 after, I think, 29 years, almost 30 years. They had that format. Then they ditched it for sports talk. Next is 89.1 KMHD, a jazz station from Mount Hood Community College. They took a big drop from 3.2 to 1.9 and a cumulative audience of 117,600. iHeartRadio's alternative rocker, Alt 1023, heard on KKRZ HD2, moves up a bit from 0.6 to 0.8. Cumulative audience of 95,600. And there is an FM translator on 102.3 that feeds KKRZ HD2. Alpha Media conservative talker Freedom 970 KUFO is also up from 0.6 to 0.8 with a cumulative audience of 26,700. All right, next up is EMF's 1041 Air One, playing Christian worship music, now known as KPOZ FM. They're up from 0.6 to 0.7 with a cumulative audience of 71,900. Now, Salem Media Group sold all of its contemporary Christian music stations to EMF, and this was one of those stations that they sold. So now Air One can be heard in the Portland area on 104.1. Next is Odyssey Media's sports station 750 The Game KXTG, also up from 0.6 to 0.7 with a cumulative audience of 37,000. This is the station that has Seattle Seahawks football in Portland. Next is variety station KBOO 90.7 KBOO FM from the KBOO Foundation. They hold steady at a 0.6 and a cumulative audience of 47,700. Then you've got Salem Media Group's religious talk station 93.9 KPDQ FM. There's also an AM station in Portland on 800. 93.9 KPDQ is up from 0.5 to 0.6 with a cumulative audience of 13,300. Next is iHeartRadio sports station Rip City Sports Radio 620 KPOJ. This is the Portland Trailblazers flagship, and they've been in the news recently. They just sold the team, I think, to the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's trying to keep, and he wants to keep the team in Portland, so that's big news for them. Rip City Radio is up from 0.5 to 0.6 with a cumulative audience of 32,600. Then you have EMF's K-Love on 97.9 KLVP, which plays contemporary Christian music. They hold steady at a 0.5 with a cumulative audience of 54,000. So looking at this, Air One is getting higher ratings than K-Love in Portland. What up, Joey? How you doing? Next up is Alpha Media's hip-hop station, We 1029 KINK-FM HD2, also on a translator in Gresham, Oregon on 102.9. They're down from 0.6 to 0.4, cumulative audience of 60,400. Then you've got the online stream of KOPB-FM, the local NPR news station in Portland. They're down from 0.6 to 0.4 as well. Odyssey Sports Station, 910 ESPN Portland, KMTT, which runs the entire ESPN radio schedule, is down from 0.3 to 0.2, cumulative audience of 15,100. Next is another Odyssey station, and that's KNRK2, which plays classic alternative rock. This is heard on KNRK HD2, obviously. They are up from 0.1 to 0.2 with a cumulative audience of 7,900. That's 500 more listeners than the online stream of the main station, 94-7 FM, which plays present-day alternative. Probably some classics as well. Salem Media's AM 860, The Answer, KPAM, stays at a 0.2 for the fourth month in a row, and a cumulative audience of 15,400 for the conservative talker. The online stream of 1080 The Fan is next at a 0.1, followed by the online stream, or should I say online streams of both KMHD and 99.5 The Wolf, both registering a 0.1. iHeartRadio's Pride Radio, heard on KXJM HD2, is steady at a 0.1 with a cumulative audience of 2,100. And then you have the online stream of 97.1 Charlie FM at 0.1. Meanwhile, the online stream of Classic Rocker 92.3 KGON and Salem Media Group's True Talk 800 KPDQ AM did not register in the Portland market in June. In fact, for True Talk 800, this is the second straight month in which they didn't register. KFIS, which is 104.1, this is the old contemporary Christian station under Salem Media ownership, known as The Fish, flipped to Air One as KPOZ back on February 1st. So there's a note there. All right, now we're headed over to the gateway to the west, the number 24 market, St. Louis, Missouri. And leading the way in St. Louis is Hubbard's Classic Rocker, KSHE 95, which is KSHE FM 94.7. And they actually lost half a point, from 9.5 to 9.0. Cumulative audience of 518,400. iHeartRadio's 103.3 KLOU, which is classic hits, primarily 80s, also is down half a point, from 9.2 to 8.7, and a cumulative audience of 649,100. So KSHE 95 maintains its St. Louis lead by about 0.3 of a point. In third place, is Hubbard's adult hit station 106.5 The Arch, WARH, up from 6.8 to 7.1, and a cumulative audience of 516,300. Followed by Gateway Creative Broadcasting's adult contemporary or Christian adult contemporary station 99.1 Joy FM, which is KLJY FM. They are down from 6.8 to 6.2, falling to fourth place. Cumulative audience of 305,400. Odyssey Adult Contemporary Station 102.5 KEZK takes the number 5 spot, up from 5.5 to 6.0, and a cumulative audience of 576,600. In sixth place is the local NPR news station 90.7 KWMU from the University of Missouri St. Louis. They're up half a point, from 4.8 to 5.3, with a cumulative audience of 179,000. Odyssey's urban adult contemporary station 96.3 R&B for the Lou, WFUN FM, is down from 5.4 to 5.3 and is actually in a sixth place tie with KWMU. 96.3 has a cumulative audience of 257,600. In eighth place is iHeart Country Station 93.7 The Bull, KSD FM, up from 4.8 to 5.0, and a cumulative audience of 345,100. Then you have Hubbard Broadcasting's Active Rock and Alternative Hybrid 105.7 The Point, KPNT, down from a 5.2 to a 4.8, and a cumulative audience of 323,400. They take the number 9 spot. And coming in at number 10 is Odyssey News Talker 104.1 KMOX FM, which is also heard on 11:20 AM. They're down from 4.7 to 4.5, and a cumulative audience of 252,100. Now 104.1 flipped to its current news talk format from its long-running hip-hop format as Hot 104.1. And that was back in March. Yeah, that was back in March. And this is also the St. Louis Cardinals flagship station. Outside the top 10 is Hubbard Country Station 92.3 WIL, up from 4.3 to 4.4, with a cumulative audience of 324,100. That's followed by Odyssey Hot AC Y98 KYKYFM, up from 3.8 to 4.2, with a cumulative audience of 368,300. iHeartRadio's top 40 station, Z1077 KSLZ, is down from 4.2 to 4.0, and a cumulative audience of 327,300. Nearly a full point below them is Hubbard Sports Station 101 ESPN WXOS, also down from 3.5 to 3.2. Cumulative audience of 151,200. iHeartRadio's hip-hop station 100.3 The Beat KATZ-FM holds steady for a third straight month at 2.9. Cumulative audience of 162,500. Next is Gateway Creative Broadcasting's Boost 95.5 KXBS, which plays Christian hip-hop, up half a point for 1.8 to 2.3. Cumulative audience of 139,400. Odyssey's Conservative Talker 97.1 FM Talk KFTK FM is up from 1.5 to 1.8, with a cumulative audience of 76,100, and that's just ahead of the competing Conservative Talker in St. Louis, iHeartMedia's 104.9 The Patriot KTLK FM, up from 1.4 to 1.7. And a cumulative audience of 66,100. Next is the online stream of KMOX AM and FM at a 1.5. iHeartRadio's urban gospel station Hallelujah 1600 KATZ AM is down from 1.3 to 1.1, with a cumulative audience of 36,400. And then here's an out-of-town station that registers in St. Louis, Southern Illinois University's R&B and Jazz station, 88.7 The Sound, WSIE-FM. This is based in Carbondale, Illinois, as I said, on the campus of Southern Illinois University. They are up from 0.9 to 1.1 with a cumulative audience of 51,800. Then you have jazz music from KWMU HD2, which is known as Jazz KWMU2. They're up from 0.2 to 0.5. Cumulative audience of 12,700. And then Odyssey's hip-hop station, Hot 98.7, which is heard on a St. Louis translator on 98.7 and fed via KEZ KHD2. They're stuck at a 0.4. Cumulative audience of 41,100. Next up is iHeartRadio's Black Information Network 103.7 KATZ FM HD2, which is fed via a translator in Muscuda, Illinois on 103.7. They're up from 0.1 rather to 0.2. Cumulative audience of 14,400. Next is the online stream of 97.1 FM Talk at 0.2. Then you've got K-Sheet Classics from Hubbard Broadcasting's KSHE HD2. They hang tough at a 0.2 with a cumulative audience of 29,900. Then you have Urban Oldies station Foxy 106.9 from Gateway Creative Broadcasting. This is heard on KXBS HD3 and on the 106.9 translator in St. Louis. They're down from 0.3 to 0.2. with a cumulative audience of 26,900. Alright, then you got the online stream of Y98 at 0.2 and the online stream of 102.5 KEZK at a 0.1. Also at a 0.1 is iHeartMedia's Pride Radio, which is an LGBTQ plus targeted top 40 dance and EDM station. This is heard on KSLZ HD2. They're holding steady at 0.1, cumulative audience of 17,500. And then iHeartRadio's adult R&B station Magic, which is heard on KTLK HD2, registers again at a 0.1 with a cumulative audience of 5,600. Now this format was on the full power 104.9 HD1 until KTLK, what is now KTLK, flipped to conservative talk. That was, I think, 2023, I want to say, late 2023. Classical 90.7 KWMU3 from the University of Missouri St. Louis, heard on KWMU HD3, did not register, nor did the other classical station, Classic 107.3, broadcasting on a translator in St. Louis on 107.3 and fed through WFUN HD2, and the online stream of 96.3 R&B also did not register. On March 24th, KMOX AM began simulcasting on 104.1. The Hot 104.1 format and brand, which was hip hop and R&B, moved to KEZK HD2 and translator 98.7. Final market we're going to take a look at is the Alamo City, San Antonio, Texas. And just like we talked about pure dominance by iHeartRadio in Portland, well, you have pure dominance of Cox Media by Cox Media Group in San Antonio, as half the stations in the top 10 are all Cox properties, including the top 4. Starting off with its Hot AC station, Hits 105.3 KSMG. They're up from 6.6 to 7.5, cumulative audience of 343,900. In second place is their classic hits station, Kono 101.1 KONO FM, down from 6.9 to 6.7. Their country station, Y100 KCYY FM, jumps more than a point from 5.2 to 6.3. Cumulative audience of 403,500. And then rounding out the Fantastic Four is rock station 99.5 KISS KISS FM, which took a big drop from 8.4 in May down to 5.9 in June. Cumulative audience of 332,800. And they are tied with EMF's 91.3 K-Love, KZLV. They're up from 4.5 to 5.9 with a cumulative audience of 185,400. So it sounds like K-Love is doing just fine in San Antonio, as they are tied for 4th with 99.5 KISS. In 6th place is iHeart Country Station, KJ97, KAJA, down from a 5.4 to a 5.2. Cumulative audience of 299,100. In 7th place is Televisa Univision's regional Mexican station, K92.9. That's 92.9 in English. KROM FM is down from 5.7 to 5.0 with a cumulative audience of 132,600, but it is still the highest rated Spanish language station in San Antonio. In 8th place is Texas Public Radio's NPR news station 89.1 KSTX, up from 4.3 to 5.0, and a cumulative audience of 130,000. They are tied with Cox Media Group's classic rock station 106.7 The Eagle KTKX, which dropped more than a point from 6.1 down to 5.0. And puts them in a three-way tie for 7th place, believe it or not. They have a cumulative audience of 308,100. Rounding out the top 10 is Televisa Univision's classic hip-hop station Vibe 107.5 KVBH, up half a point from 2.8 to 3.3. Cumulative audience of 248,600. Outside the top 10 is Alpha Media's adult hits station 102.7 Jack FM KJXK, down from 3.4 to 3.2. They recently changed their brand to San Antonio's 102.7, but still uses Jack FM programming. That's followed by its sister news talk station 550 KTSA, which is also heard on a San Antonio translator at 107.1, moving up 1 point from 2.0 to 3.0. Cumulative audience of 112,100. Alright, EMF's 97.7 Air 1, which is KZAR. This basically covers like the southern and western suburbs of San Antonio. They're up from a 1.7 to a 2.9 with a cumulative audience of 84,700. Next up is iHeartRadio's flagship station, their news talker, News Radio 1200 WOAI, down from 3.0 to 2.9, so they are tied with Air 1 in the ratings. And a cumulative audience of 131,000, and this is the flagship station of this team, the San Antonio Spurs. Wanted to throw that in. Next is Televisa Univision's hip-hop station 98.5 The Beat KBBT, up from 2.4 to 2.8, cumulative audience of 244,500. There you have a three-way tie with a trio of iHeartRadio stations. Its adult contemporary station Q1019 KQXT has really fallen on hard times this year. At the beginning of the year, they had a 5.4 share of the San Antonio market. Then it went down to 5.0 in February, back up to 5.3 in March. But since then, they've been on a downward trend. They fell to 4.9 in April, down to 3.6 in May, and now they are at a 2.3 in June with a cumulative audience of 238,400. This is usually one of the highest rated stations in San Antonio, but again, listenership has dropped dramatically on this station. Its sister station, Bilingual AC Mix 96.1 KXXM, is at 2.3, up from 2.1, and a cumulative audience of 235,100. And according to Robert from Hobbyman ZXE, as I saw his video on the San Antonio ratings, he says that they're pretty much the same station. Only Mix 96.1 has Spanish announcers and Spanish imaging, while Q1019 is English. And then the other station from iHeartRadio that's in this 2.3 tie is their Spanish Top 40 station, 104.5 Latino Hits, KZEP FM. They're up from 2.0 to 2.3. Cumulative audience of 179,400. Moving down the list, you have Alpha Media's regional Mexican station, Norteno, 104.1 and 720. That's KSAH, AM, and FM. Up from 2.0 to 2.1. Cumulative audience of 91,900. And then below them is Televisa Univision's Amor 95.1 KMYO, which plays Spanish adult contemporary. They took a big hit from 2.5 to 1.8 and a cumulative audience of 144,400. Then you have classical music station KPAC 88.3 from San Antonio-based Texas Public Radio, up from 1.7 to 1.8 and a cumulative audience of 70,000. Next is another iHeartRadio station, and that's regional Mexican La Preciosa 105.7, which is heard on a translator at 105.7 FM, feeding KQXT HD3. They're up from 0.5 to 0.9 with a cumulative audience of 43,500. Alpha Media's Tejano station, Tejano 95.7 KLEY FM, drops from 1.2 to 0.8. Cumulative audience of 75,600. And then EMF's 103.7 Air 1, which is KZAI FM. This is the station that a few years ago moved from Corpus Christi to San Antonio. The station is licensed to Balcones Heights, a suburb of San Antonio. They're down from 0.9 to 0.7 with a cumulative audience of 60,000. That's followed by Country Legends 680 from Cox Media Group's KKYX with a translator at 104.9. They're down from 0.7 to 0.6, cumulative audience of 66,600. That's followed by iHeartRadio's classic country station 92.5 and 93.3 The Bull, which is KRPT 92.5, also on an FM translator at 93.3 in San Antonio, which also feeds KZEP FM HD3. They hold steady at a 0.6 with a cumulative audience of 73,600. And then both the local sports stations are way down in the San Antonio ratings. iHeartMedia's Ticket 760 KTKR is up from 0.5 to 0.6. Cumulative audience of 34,100. And Alpha's sports station, San Antonio Sports Star 94.1 KTFM, holds steady at 0.5 with a cumulative audience of 52,800. And from what I've heard, Houston Texans football plays in San Antonio on 94.1. Next, you have the online stream of 106.7 The Eagle at a 0.5. And the online stream of Y100 at a 0.3. Tied with Alpha's hip-hop station, We 94.5. Heard on a San Antonio translator at 94.5 and fed via KTFM HD2. They hold steady at a 0.3 for the third straight month and a cumulative audience of 35,500. And then we got some more streams to tell you about, all from Cox Media Group. The online stream of 680 Country Legends Classic Hits 101.1 KONO, and Hits 105.3 are all at a 0.2. They have EMF's 103.1 K-Love, KZKV-FM, playing contemporary Christian music, and this is primarily in areas south of San Antonio. They register at a 0.2 with a cumulative audience of 8,400. And they have the online stream of what is now San Antonio's 102.7, formerly Jack FM, but still playing their programming. Tejano 95.7. Both of those streams come in at 0.1. And then Alpha Media's Sports Talker, ESPN 1250 and 103.3, which is KZDC, is at a 0.1, holding steady. Cumulative audience of 10,500. And this station runs the entire ESPN radio schedule. The remaining stations did not register. That includes the online stream of 99.5 KISS, EMF's 106.3 K-Love, KMLR out of Gonzales, which primarily airs to the further north and eastern suburbs of San Antonio. KONO AM Business News 860 from Cox Media Group didn't register. Smooth Jazz San Antonio, which is heard on KQXT HD2, also didn't register. KXTN 1350, which plays Tejano music, they didn't register, nor did the classic rock format of KZEP HD2. And that is a look at the latest radio ratings for June 2025 for Portland, St. Louis, and San Antonio. The July ratings are already out, and we'll be going through those in our next installment, and we'll start right back at the top with New York, LA, and Chicago, so make sure you join me for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching, and happy listening. Peace out.